Hey, I wanted to make a video about what effects you should put on your podcast if you're going to make a podcast, because a lot of my friends who do podcasts ask me what effects I would put on one, and I wanted to just make this video so I can direct them to this video anytime they ask. I'm going to go close my door so I don't annoy my family who is probably still sleeping. Alright, I have Reaper installed right here, but it's all customized to me and has all these effects that the stock Reaper doesn't come with, and it looks different than how stock Reaper looks. And so I'm just going to go get a fresh version of Reaper so that you all can see what it looks like right when you download it. If you don't know whether to get 64 or 32-bit, you probably want 64-bit. I'm going to install a portable version of Reaper. You don't need to worry about what that means, but that's going to make it so that it looks like how yours will look when you install it fresh. I actually need to do a thing that's gonna get rid of all the special stuff that Reaper is discovering on my computer so that it looks like how it'll look for you, I guess. Okay, so when you see this, if you're on Windows, I don't really know what you should do on Mac, to be honest. Just figure it out. But if you're on Windows, click yes. Just go to wave out is perfect for podcasts and click OK. Now Reaper, the copy protection is really lax on Reaper. All that it does is show you this screen at the beginning and you have to click still evaluating. But it's only $60 to buy Reaper, which is a steal for audio software, so I would buy it if you end up using it regularly. Like I said, I'm just gonna go, and Reaper has discovered all this other audio software on my computer, and I'm gonna say, hey Reaper, don't look at that. Nobody else has that. Okay, there, that got rid of it. So now what I'm going to show you is applicable to any DAW, any digital audio workstation, but I love Reaper, and so that's what I'm going to use. So you can double click here and add tracks, and then you can hit the recording button to arm them for recording and say, when I hit the big recording button, I want these tracks to record. And then you're going to have to select your input from your audio device. You might have to go and fool around with these options to get Reaper to see your audio device, but that's outside of what I'm trying to do with this tutorial, so I'm not going to show that. Oh look, it's picking up my voice. I don't want that. So earlier I recorded some audio that we can use as example audio for this pretend podcast. Okay, so let me go grab that. Is this it? I think that's it. Yeah. No, that's not it, actually. That's it. Okay, so you'll be able to hear this later. But that brings up here.
We hold these true.
So I recorded this through an AT2020, which is actually the microphone I'm using right now as well. An Audio-Technica AT2020. That'd be a great mic to use for podcasts. So if this is your podcast, you'd probably have a bunch of tracks. Why can't I guess that can't go down any more than that. Whoops. You can make these smaller by holding control and scrolling down or whatever. Podcast audio. And you might have, you're probably going to have a few different tracks of podcast audio, and they'll come up down here. So, first of all, I'm going to delete these, but you can just, you're going to have multiple people talking. So for each of these tracks up here, you're going to have, for each person talking, you're going to have multiple tracks up here. And don't get these confused with the master track, which is what everything funnels into. Okay, so the first thing up here that you're going to need, click the effects button, is probably a volume boost, because you kind of have to record audio quietly into your relatively, as loud as you can, but you have to leave enough headroom, enough extra volume that you can never hit the volume ceiling, because if you do, it'll sound horrible. So you're going to probably need to boost the volume back up once it's in your computer. So volume adjustment. Now this built-in volume adjustment for some reason has a max volume slider. So
you know what is super rad? The declaration of it.
So if you push into this max volume, it'll sound horrible. Here, let me turn this down so I can smush into it, and then turn this way up.
You know what is super rad? The Declaration of Independence. Let's freaking read it.
Yeah, so you're going to need to, if you want to boost them, just put this all the way up. And then you can use this adjustment thing to adjust and give it the extra volume that you need.
You know what is super rad? The Declaration of Independence.
Okay, and then on the master, you're going to need, so notice when I turn this way up and this starts clipping, this starts hitting the ceiling.
You know what is super...
Shoot. Okay, now I got auto muted. I don't like auto mute, especially for a tutorial where I'm trying to show people things. So I'm going to turn off auto mute. Go into the settings, auto mute. I can't find that. Auto. No, do not automatically mute. No automatic muting. Okay. Okay.
You know what?
Ugh, see how horrible that sounds?
You know what is super rad? The Declaration of Independence.
And that's because it's clipping right there. And obviously I'm turning it up way too loud, but you might hit this ceiling, eventually at some point. So let's X out of track one's effects and hit the effects button on the master. Now what we want to do is add a limiter. So this isn't working like I expected. Did I add the right plugin?
Freaking...
Okay, I thought that I did this before and I added that limiter that I just added and it sounded good, but it apparently doesn't. But this master limiter plugin seems to sound pretty good. So if you're making a podcast, just, I guess, go with that.
You know what is super...
So now I can't hit the ceiling over here because it'll smush into the master limiter. Here, let me show you what that actually looks like, what that audio looks like.
You know what is super rad?
So these purple lines can't go above the ceiling here, but if I turn off the master limiter,
You know what is super rad?
then they shoot up above the ceiling, which is not good, and that's why it sounds so bad.
You know what is super...
So this master limiter limits the amount of audio. Okay, so another thing that you want to do on each individual track, I boosted the volume, and then I would also add an EQ. RIA EQ is the one I would recommend. And then I would cut out all the bass, because when you blow into a microphone, now this microphone you're hearing me talk through right now has effects on it, but when somebody is like, and they blow into the mic, I also have a sock on my microphone that has never been worn before. I just bought a thin dress sock, and I put it on my microphone as a pop filter for when people blow in the microphone. But if somebody blows in it or bumps it, that'll make a big bassy noise, and you want to cut that out. Okay, so that's what I'm going to do. Grab any one of these bands, these little dots up here are bands. I delete the ones that I don't need. So 2, 3, and 4, I'll delete, remove band, remove band, remove band, and I'll just use one. I don't want a low shelf type. I want a high pass that lets highs pass, meaning it cuts out lows. Low pass lets highs, or a low pass cuts out highs, a high pass cuts out lows. So let's listen to what a high pass filter sounds like.
You know what is super rad? The Declaration of Independence. Let's freaking read it. When in the course of...
All right, that's still stupidly loud, so I should probably bring that back down. That's a little...
Let's freaking read it. When in the course of human events, it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands among the powers of the earth.
All right, so I boosted the volume. I cut out all the unnecessary bass from each person speaking. And then when they all come together into the master track, you put a limiter on that. Let's remove this so it's not the scope, so it's not confusing. I put a limiter on the master track. This master limiter seems to sound good. Now, the only other effect I would put on podcast speakers is I might add some compression. Now, that's one of those things you're just going to have to Google compression. Well, I don't know. I'll try and explain compression a little bit. No, I won't, because when I was recording, I didn't realize there was already so much compression on my voice in the video effects that it's impossible to hear any extra compression I'm adding. If you don't like that sound, you don't have to use a compressor. I could totally see for a podcast not putting a compressor on people's voices. So yeah, that's basically all that I would do. I would record all of your different people up here, and then on each of these effects buttons here, boost the volume as much as you need to, EQ out that bass you don't need, maybe put a compressor on, and then when they all go into the master track, put a master limiter on there, and then you don't have to worry about clipping on the master, which, like I showed you before, sounds really bad. And that's about it. That's the effects that I would put on a podcast.